Hey Tor, just wanted to start off with saying thank you for setting up this Tiny Tableau Tip series. Really excited to not only share my content, but also see what everyone else brings to the table. In this session, I'm going to be focusing on my most used tips and tricks for dashboard development um, and making that process as smooth and as seamless as possible. One of the tips that I love and I always start off with is not very focused on functionality. It's more focused on the aesthetics, but I really do believe that good aesthetics can make your dashboard more functional because folks want to interact with it more. So, just to give some background of what it is, I'll dive into it later, but it's essentially using parameter actions and dynamic zone visibility to make things on your dashboard go away or come back. So in this example, in this use case, I'm using these buttons to expand and collapse this left-hand navigation toolbar here that we see on the side. So I'm going to go into my collapse worksheet. People can access my dashboard, this workbook, my Tip Battle TC26 final workbook on my Tableau public, where they'll have access to these instructions. But essentially, I have two worksheets, one collapse, one expand with collapse and expand icons. I'm going to come in here and show what are the elements of this interactivity. So I have a parameter, a string parameter that essentially has expand and collapse as text here. And then I have four calculated fields, two for each. So two for collapse and two for expand. This is a Boolean calculated field that essentially is saying, hey, if my parameter is collapse, true. And then I have this dummy calculated field that I actually bring into the details pane of both of my worksheets. You don't have to create a calculated field. You can literally just like double click and type it in if I wanted to, like that. I'm not going to because I have it as a calculated field, but just something I thought I'd share. And I have the exact same thing for expand. So four total. Come back into the dashboard and I'm going to click Control Shift D because I need to make a parameter action. And I already have the two parameters here made, so I'll go through them. Collapse, the source sheet is my collapse worksheet that we just went over. The target parameter is the choose collapse / expand parameter we also just went over. And my source field is that dummy collapse field. I have no aggregations and I'm keeping current value. I'm going to do the exact same thing for is expand, as you can see here. And then I come back into my dashboard. You're going to want to pull out your worksheets. You can either have them as floating containers or tiled containers. Just make sure that the placement makes the most sense for the user. I have it up here right next to where the navigation toolbar is going to be. And when I click on it, you can see here, my expand is actually set to the is collapse Boolean calculated field. And then my collapse is set to my is expand. So one thing to note is you also want to have your container that is going to expand and collapse adhering to dynamic zone visibility. So I have it set to the is expand calculated field. And so when I click this button, it expands and collapses that container. Another thing to note is that because it is a worksheet, you can add instructions to the tooltip to make interactivity easier, to make the dashboard easier to navigate for the user. You can use it in the way that I just showed in that use case. You can also use it to have information dialog boxes pop up like this, for example, where we have this information pop up, and then I have another worksheet here that closes it. Same thing for filters. I can have this button open my filter pane, and then have it close again. And then, of course, like I mentioned, have instructions in the worksheet. So those are three use cases that you can use that tip on. I do have a couple more tips that I went over in the tip battle, but just for the sake of time, I'm not going to go over them. Folks can access it through my dashboard, but it's essentially using markers and flaggers on dual axis charts, and then also using the true false fields and action filters to deactivate the native highlighting marks in Tableau. Instead, I'm actually going to jump into some rapid fire tips that I use for dashboard efficiency. So to begin, if I want to quickly go between the dashboard and the layout pane, I can just hit T and go back and forth. I already said this, but Control Shift D will bring up the action dialog box. If I want to edit tooltips from my dashboard, I don't have to go into the worksheet. I can just click on the worksheet, hit worksheet up here, and then edit from the tooltip. If I go to this sheet section here, I can click on any of my worksheets and add to dashboard, go to the sheet, duplicate sheet, or rename sheet, which I think is super helpful. I do not have to go to the worksheet to do that. I can also come back to this item hierarchy section here, and I can rename containers. So I have my open and close worksheets in this open close container, so I know exactly what it is. I have extra tips in this container, information in my information container, etc. If I have a lot of containers in another container and I want to see what's in it, right? I have this large container. I can just hit Shift asterisk asterisk and it expands everything in that container, which is super helpful. I can also bring a text box into my into my dashboard and create a legend using Unicodes. Oftentimes I find that the native legends in Tableau can be quite finicky. They either get cut off, they look wonky, etc. But for a better user experience, I bring in my own using Unicode characters. I can, in addition to editing the tooltips from the dashboard, I can also edit calculated fields, and it'll show me all of the calculated fields that are within my dashboard view just from there. And then if I hit Control Shift I don't have a data model, but if I did, I wouldn't have to go back to this data source pane and have it load. I could just see the data model here. So outside of that, one last tip is if you want to see hierarchy of containers, you can just continue to click this little top section, and it'll show you that hierarchy visually. I do believe that's all. Thank you again. I know that I'm a bit over, but thank you again, Tor, for all of the things that you're doing on this series. If you have any questions, please let me know.